Today's episode on HDMI is brought to you by Squarespace. We're going to make HDMI and Fujifilm exciting, fun, entertaining, and awesome. Roll intro. Hi everyone and welcome to Pal to Tech. Today we're talking about HDMI, High Definition Multimedia Interface. HDMI was designed to be an industry standard for displaying video on various screens. And yes, it is used by Fujifilm to display video and stills from the camera to external monitors. HDMI cables come in three sizes: standard, mini, and a micro version, which is what Fujifilm uses. You connect a cord from an external monitor straight into the back of the Fujifilm camera's micro HDMI port. But be careful because it looks like a USB port. I've had times where I've shoved this right into the wrong port, damaged the camera, and back it goes to Fujifilm for repair. So don't make that same mistake. So why do you care if your camera has HDMI? I mean, what use does it really have? Well, there's a few situations. The first is that having an external recorder connected to your camera via HDMI is one of the best video accessories you could ever get. Another reason you'd want to use an external monitor would have nothing to do with actually recording your footage to it, but just to have it so that you can see what you're shooting easier while you're shooting it. And they range in all different sizes. They even have little ones like this, but those work really well, especially on a gimbal. The problem is some of these batteries will dwarf the monitor size. I mean, look at this thing. Another benefit is that you get these awesome tools like RGB histograms, false colors, exposure controls, and so forth. And lastly, you can use an external monitor if you happen to be on set and you want your clients who happen to also be on set to see what you're doing, right? You can use larger sizes. You don't have to be restricted to these smaller monitors right here. You can use something like this. So for example, you could daisy chain different external monitors together out of your Fujifilm camera, right, into the smaller recording one's input right here, okay? So now you're throwing the picture here. Then you would go out of your recorder using the regular HDMI cable, okay? And just plug it into one of these external HDMI ports just like this. Have a look at this. I can even put my menu screens right here, which means I can also throw a picture that I've just taken straight on the external monitor. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the playback button. I just love my job. Now keep in mind when you're talking about an HDMI coming out of the camera, you may hear the term clean HDMI. What that means is that the camera is able to output what the lens is seeing and remove all of the other stuff like the exposure and camera information. And you see where it says HDMI output info display equals on? Just turn that off. So now the back of the camera is still showing all of the camera settings, right? However, it is not being recorded here and it is not being displayed to the clients here. They are just seeing the clean HDMI. Does that make sense? There are 5 settings that have to do with HDMI on your Fujifilm camera. The first is called 4K movie output, and that is where you specify how you're going to output either 4K or high def, 1080. So for example, here I'm outputting 4K to both the SD card and to my external device via HDMI. Right here, I'm outputting 4K to my SD card while outputting high def 1080 to my external monitor, all right? However, if I go here, look, I do the opposite. 1080 is going on the SD card, 4K is going on the monitor. And the bottom one right here, nothing is going on the SD card and 4K is going on the monitor. This is what I use almost all the time. Why would you want to do that? It's simple. If you set it this way and you don't save anything to the SD card and instead you put everything on the monitor, guess what? You can shoot for as long as you want. There's no 30-minute restriction. The camera will just keep rolling until the batteries die or the hard drive fills up. The next setting is F-Log recording, and here inside this menu you can tell your Fujifilm camera how you want it to handle your your F-Log or hybrid log gamma footage output location. So in the case of the top choice here, I'm shooting in and saving regular video to both the SD card and the HDMI output. If I choose the third one on this list right here, that means I'm saving the footage shot in, say, Eterna film simulation, already finished and processed that way, to the SD card. However, I am outputting F-Log footage to the HDMI port. That way I have two different copies of it. One as in regular, Fujifilm film simulation version on the SD card, and the other in F-Log recorded on here, and I can decide later on in post what I want to do with the footage. The next setting is HDMI output info display. And as I mentioned earlier, with this setting, you're simply telling the camera, include the footage with all of the camera menus and everything else, or turn that off and simply have clean HDMI, which is what you would do if you were recording, shooting an actual movie and not doing one of these YouTube demos, that I'm doing. The next one is 4K HDMI standby quality. This one's interesting, and it's really here to save batteries. What this means is if you put it in FHD, that's a lower resolution, that's 1080, and you don't set it to 4K, then when you're in standby mode, meaning when you're connected to an external monitor, but you're not actually recording, it will drop the resolution to high definition 1080, and that will save battery life. There's no reason to have it broadcasting out in 4K if you're not actually shooting. So by putting it in FHD and just leaving it that way, the 4K will be available once you start shooting, but when you're not shooting and you're just kind of sitting around on set, it's not going to be draining the battery or heating up the camera. Definitely want to keep it in FHD for most of the time. And the last one is HDMI record control. So on an external recording monitor, when you want to record, normally you would use the record button on the monitor itself. So for example, here, I want to start rolling, I hit that, okay? And now the recorder is recording the HDMI signal from the camera. Now the camera is actually not shooting a movie. I have not pressed the shutter release on this camera. It's just recording the signal right now as I aim the camera at Gear Iguana. However, if your external monitor, say, is connected with a longer cord and it's in a different location, or you just don't want to have to worry about keeping going over to it and starting it, you can start recording on the external monitor by simply pressing the shutter release on the camera. It's sort of a trigger for both. When you go into the camera settings and you set HDMI record control to on, now what happens is when I press the camera's shutter release button, watch this, boom! See it recording? You see that red record indicator? Look at that. And then when I press it again, it stops. It enables the camera's shutter release button to control the external monitor. That's all that setting does. Having an HDMI external display or an external recorder is a wonderful accessory to have for your Fujifilm camera. Whether you use one of these huge ones right here, right? Or you use one of these little ones right here. I'll have a link to a few of my favorites in the description below this video. One thing I want to mention about HDMI is that be very careful when you are plugging in and unplugging your micro HDMI cable into the camera, okay? It can break very easily. I think micro HDMI sucks, and one of my biggest requests to Fujifilm is to either go regular HDMI or mini HDMI at the very least. We need to get rid of micro HDMI. It needs to go. Before I put all these monitors away, I want to give a big thanks to today's video sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an online platform that will help you to design, build, and publish your own website and portfolio. I made a video recently where I mentioned that social media services are not really your own platforms. Well, your own platform is definitely your own website. And what's great about Squarespace is that your website can be built and published very easily. They have a great selection of designs to choose from, and they're optimized for all screen sizes, such as these large desktop monitors or these little mobile devices. They've agreed to partner with this channel to offer you a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So start your free trial today at squarespace.com/paltatech. Well, I hope you found this video helpful or entertaining or both. And if you did, be sure to give it the like and subscribe. I will see you in another video again very soon. Take care.